Hey everyone, welcome to Turkish series stars. All the details are in our video today, so don't forget to subscribe to Turkish series stars and share this video before we get started. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get into what shook the acting world last night. It all unfolded in a heartbeat. Barış Arduç had just returned from a project abroad, stepping off his flight at Istanbul airport with the kind of relaxed pace you adopt after long hours in the air. He was supposedly heading home for a quiet night. But moments after he turned his phone back on, a call came through that changed everything. According to people close to him, the voice on the other end told him that Elçin Sangu had been rushed to the hospital with a sudden illness. Whatever his plans were, they ceased to matter instantly. Eyewitnesses said you could see the shift happen in real time. One moment he was walking through the terminal, the next he was moving fast. Too fast for his assistant to comfortably keep up. He didn't stop for luggage. He didn't greet the fans who had gathered at arrivals, despite recognizing faces he'd seen for years. He kept one hand on his phone, the other briefly on his chest as if trying to steady his heartbeat. As he reached the parking lot and the car swung open, he got in with urgency written across his face. More than one person heard him raise his voice, clear, sharp, and emotional, "Take me to the hospital now." The car shot out of the airport, and according to sources, Barış stayed on the phone the entire drive, switching between calls to his manager and a couple of close mutual friends, trying to gather fragments of information. At times he was all questions, all energy, as if speed could pull details out of thin air. At other times he fell into a quiet that felt heavy from the outside, with only a clipped "I'm almost there" breaking through. The worry was unmistakable. When they reached the hospital's emergency entrance, chaos waited for them. Word had already leaked online that Elçin was inside, and the crowd at the doors had begun to swell, reporters standing on tiptoe, camera flashes puncturing the night, curious onlookers whispering rumors. Security at the hospital tried to keep the path open, but the energy of a breaking story is a hard thing to tame. Barış slipped through with a determined stride, ignoring the questions fired at him, and headed straight to reception. He spoke to the staff in a low, controlled voice, but people nearby described his posture as steel under pressure. He looked like someone carrying 10 different futures in his chest and desperate to know which one he'd stepped into. The hospital, of course, had nothing to say officially. "Tests are underway," was the only line anyone was willing to repeat. Friends close to Elçin shared that she had felt weak throughout the day, a blur of fatigue followed by dizziness, and decided not to ignore it. She had gone in for a checkup, which suggested prudence, not panic, but the words "sudden illness" never sit quietly with the public. Barış's level of concern only amplified the questions. Was this something simple? Or was there more that people didn't know? The corridors of the hospital quickly became a spillway for the flood of social media. Within an hour, the phrase "Barış didn't leave Elçin alone" was everywhere, in comments, captions, and late-night threads. Fans of the duo gathered their hopes into typed messages, sending strength the only way they could, as if their screens were windows looking into a waiting room. People shared clips of the airport dash, blurry shots of him entering the building, and whispered updates from someone who knew someone inside. The hashtag #BarışElçin trended deep into the night. Those who saw him inside said that he kept a small circle, only a few close friends and colleagues were allowed near him. He spoke to the doctors when called, stood near the reception desk like a sentry at other moments, and otherwise watched the hall that led to the treatment area. The silence around him spoke loudly. It ignited the conversation that had smoldered for months. What was the true shape of the bond between them? Were they just cherished co-stars who'd turned into dear friends, or was there something more? People asked the same question, over and over: are they close or not? Everyone waited for one thing, the line that would come from the hospital, the sentence that would calm the city, discharged and doing well. Until then, all anyone had was a feeling. And the feeling was that the entire industry had paused to look toward a single door. The atmosphere didn't settle as the hours stretched on. Barış had touched down from an international event, expecting routine, and instead got panic packaged into a phone call less than 5 minutes after landing. The effect on him was impossible to miss. People at the airport described how his face changed mid-step, how he took a sudden right turn and headed for the exit without a backward glance, how his assistant tried to catch up, the wheels of a small carry-on thudding across the tiles, forgotten the second they reached the curb. As they drove, he shifted between urgency and silence. At one point, his voice was clipped and measured as he spoke with a hospital contact. At another, he broke into a rush of questions, asking if she was awake, if she was in pain, if anyone was with her. Then he went quiet again, as if he'd put himself on hold. People said he looked like someone trying to outrun his thoughts. By the time he stepped inside the hospital, the adrenaline had spread to everyone else. Security tried to form a barrier, not only for him, but for the possibility that Elçin might be moved. Staff at the desk were attentive, recognizing both the headline standing in front of them and the real fear in his eyes. He asked for information, spoke briefly with a member of the medical team, and was taken to a private spot where they could give him an update. The hospital's message remained the same, no definitive explanation yet. What they could say was that she had been dealing with nausea and fatigue through the day, symptoms that might pass as quickly as they arrived, or stretch longer, depending on what the tests revealed. To people watching from a distance, the uncertainty was the hardest part. And as it often does, that uncertainty became the oxygen for speculation online. Is this more serious than it seems? Is something being hidden to keep the calm? Why did Barış look so distressed if this was routine? But one thing united the feeds: support. Messages poured in for her health and for his strength. The hashtag Barış Elçin stayed in the top ranks while another line spread like a chorus: he didn't leave her side. Those words were repeated so often they began to feel like they had always belonged to them. After the initial conversations, people inside reported that he was allowed to see her. He went up the corridor flanked by a staffer, disappeared into the quiet of a room, and stayed. The minutes stretched toward an hour, then longer. He didn't navigate the hallways for show, he didn't pose for the cameras outside. He was there, present, private, and unyielding. That alone fueled even more conversation. If there had been rumors before, now there were declarations. The bond that fans sensed between them was framed as fact by those watching from the lobby. That's the power of a moment like this: either it silences whispers or it makes them echo. And it didn't stop there. The spark that began at the airport grew into a full-on blaze in the tabloid world by midnight. Details stacked on details. Another account from the runway claimed that the call reached him just as the plane doors opened, and he changed directions before he even cleared the jet bridge. Someone else swore they saw him call his agent, his friend from set, and a family contact in rapid succession, gathering what he could as the city rolled past the car windows in streaks of light. When he arrived at emergency, there was a brief flurry, those choreographed movements that happen when recognizable faces walk into intense places. A small security team created space so he wouldn't be swallowed by the crowd at the door, and then he was in, cutting across the entrance and heading for the desk. "Which room is Elçin Sangu in?" he asked, breathing hard enough that the sentence broke in the middle. It wasn't a performance. It was care stripped of all varnish. Hospital sources, careful with their words, reiterated that she hadn't felt right during the day and came in to be safe. Tests were ongoing. Doctors would update when there was something to say. Those lines were repeated like a script, and they were honest, but honesty without detail can sound like a puzzle missing its center. And so the city's curiosity surged again. Still, beyond the curiosity, something warmer was happening. People posted their favorite scenes, favorite interviews, favorite memories of the two of them laughing together between takes. They wrote about the comfort of seeing him step up without hesitation. It became a chain reaction of empathy. If he was worried, they would worry with him. If she needed strength, they would send what they had. Inside, he kept to himself. He checked in with a couple of trusted friends and then disappeared down the same hallway as before whenever he was allowed. No statements, no quotes, no reassurances offered from a lobby full of microphones. He was operating in a much smaller orbit: doctor, nurse, door, chair by the bed. And if there were critics outside who always want a spectacle, there were even more people quietly grateful for the dignity of it. By the time the night deepened, the question hanging over everything was the same one from the very beginning: what caused her to fall ill so suddenly? Without a concrete answer, the public gave the moment meaning in another way, by recognizing what it revealed about him. The calm, reserved actor who so often lets the work speak chose action over explanation. He left the terminal without baggage or approval, stepped into the storm, and stood in it until there was news to hear. That decision became the story of the day in the industry. It pressed pause on other headlines. It pulled the spotlight entirely onto one corridor, one room, one relationship that has always captured the imagination of millions. And as we waited for the message that would signal the end of the scare, discharged and resting, one truth was already clear: when the call came, he ran. The city woke up still talking about it. New angles emerged, new versions of the same timeline played out across screens, but at their core the details remained aligned. He landed. He got the call. He rushed. He pushed through the night for her. In a world where so many things are orchestrated, last night felt unfiltered. We will be watching for the official update from the hospital, and when it arrives, we'll bring it to you. Until then, what we saw was enough to understand the depth of feeling at play. Fans keep repeating it, and maybe it's the clearest way to put it: he didn't leave her alone. Thank you for watching Turkish series Stars. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to Turkish series Stars and share it with other fans who are waiting for good news. We'll see you in the next one.